We'd like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park, the championship meet, running now through Florida Derby weekend, March 31st.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America. I am Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us on this holiday weekend. Hopefully everybody is moving through as stress-free as possible. Got all the shopping done, hopefully. Although if you travel out on Christmas Eve, you can see not everybody has their shopping done in time exactly. But hopefully, as I say, as stress-free as possible. Today on the network, on this holiday Saturday, we'll have some Gulfstream, some Tampa, Fairgrounds, Laurel. That'll be coming up a little bit later on. Tomorrow, I will be in with Racing Across America early and then, an abbreviated afternoon because both of the Florida tracks are going tomorrow. So we'll take a look at a little Gulfstream and a little Tampa tomorrow as well. Again, if you're not aware, NYRA has a holiday break. They're back on Thursday. Oaklawn, a little holiday break as well. Don't forget, starting at about 6 o'clock tomorrow, I'm told, that will be the replay of our best of. That's going to go all day on Christmas Day. As we do annually, it's the best of some of the interviews we did this past summer up at Saratoga. So if you want to take a little break during the day on Christmas, fire us up and enjoy some of that action on Christmas Day. Again, with no racing, obviously, in the country. So that gets you caught up there. As far as today, there's a big day at the Fairgrounds. There's a nice stakes card at Gulfstream as well. There's also a mandatory in the Rainbow at Gulfstream. And coming up a little bit later on, we taped our interviews yesterday. One of them was with Brian Nadeau down at Gulfstream. And we touted the mandatory pay, expecting a big pool. And we said when we taped it, because we're about halfway through the Gulfstream card, and there'd been a couple upsets. We said, the potential is there. And sure enough, somebody scooped the whole pool. So it won't be quite as big, but on mandatory days down there, they still get a lot of money put into the pool, and they're guaranteeing $100,000, and it'll balloon up nicely. So if you looked in handicap, you'll have a good chunk of money to take a shot at today with the mandatory pay in the Rainbow down at Gulfstream. But today, coming up, Kevin Kilroy, you see him doing the pregame down at Fairgrounds, paddock commentary. He also runs around the backstretch and does the notes for their the news that appears on their website. So we talked with Kevin, got some of his opinions on the stakes action today down at Fairgrounds. Also coming up a little bit later on, Kenny McPeek. He has 5 entrants scheduled in 4 of the stakes races down there. We talk about that, some of his other horses, and a couple other topics as well with Ken. And then again, Brian Nadeau will join us also to talk a little bit about the stakes action today down at Gulfstream. So I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will line up those interviews as we continue on the morning. Kevin Kilroy, Ken McPeek, Brian Nadeau, all of that right after this. Stay tuned.
They're off in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. And they're off in the Curlin Florida Derby. Forte wins. White Aborio almost home.
And Nyquist is still unbeaten. Orb and John Velasquez have won the Florida Derby.
Barbaro wins.
And there you have it. Northern Dancer will be the winner of the Florida Derby.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Big day coming up Saturday afternoon at the Fairgrounds, and happy to be joined by Kevin Kilroy. You can see him in the pregame or during the day down at the Fairgrounds as well. Does some of the notes that you read if you go to the Fairgrounds website. Kevin, good morning.
Seth, good morning. How's it going?
Very good. Happy to have you on board. Second year at the Fairgrounds, right?
It's my third year.
How time flies.
Well, you can just cross that first year out. That was just a trial run. So second real year of being somebody who actually knows what the hell he's doing.
No, you and I tell Joe Kay all the time up at Churchill, they do a great job with their pregame and whatnot, and that continues down at the Fairgrounds as well. I'll add John Dooley into that mix also, and the other partners you have down there. Talk a little bit about your background. How'd you become a racing fan and become a handicapper?
Yeah, I kind of came out of the blue into the industry. Before this, I'm a writer. That's who I am at my core. I taught for 15 years, mostly college up in Chicago, different spots, Columbia College, Chicago, and Malcolm X, all sorts of places like that. Then Kansas City Art Institute. So creative writing, literature, humanities, philosophy. That was my jam. Nice. But at 26 years old in Chicago, I was working at a pizza joint, and the manager was from Louisville, and he said, "Hey, you want to go to Arlington? You want to go see the horses run?" And I said, "All right, let's check it out." And it basically just fell in love. Just got the bug. I got a tip. I got a tip, and it came in. That's the first time going out there. Y7, Chris Block course, never forget it. So it was a slow burn. I just kind of would scramble out there as much as I can, and this is back in the day when the OTBs were across the city. So I'd be running around teaching at different colleges, popping off the L train at the different OTBs and being a real degenerate and betting a few and then going and teaching, and just didn't realize the rabbit hole I was falling down. So I'd never forget seeing Joe tweet, looking for a new sidekick down at Fairgrounds, and kind of turning to my wife and saying, "Hey, what do you think? You're cool if I apply for this?" And she gave me the nod, and the rest is kind of writing itself. So I feel very lucky. I feel very lucky to have stepped into this life.
Yeah, that's a great story because, again, it's similar to a lot of us. Somehow we get pulled to the track, and that first one we get a nice winner, and then you're literally off to the races, as it were. So, yeah, I like that story.
It seems so easy. It seems so easy,
And then I'm envious, too, that you got to visit Arlington. I really regret I never got out there because that definitely seemed like one of the more scenic and better racetracks in the country, and it's just a shame that it went by the wayside. But now you're down at Fairgrounds, and that's one of our favorite winter venues. I pulled up, we're about 3 weeks into the meet, I guess 3 or 4 weeks into the meet, and I pulled up the standings last night, and I was kind of surprised because jockey and trainer, I'm not really familiar. Jose Guerrero has a 1-win lead on more familiar names for me: James Graham, Loveberry, Ray Lou Gutierrez, right here from upstate New York, Corey Lannery. So there's some familiar names underneath, but I wasn't familiar with the leader. But you talk about getting off to a good start over on the trainer's side. I wasn't that familiar with Shane Wilson, but I guess now reading over the past couple of days, kind of a Louisiana-based guy as far as the training side of things now. But, man, is he off to a hot start. 86 starters so far, 16 winners. Joe Sharp is second with 7. And then you have Brad Cox, Brett Calhoun, Keith DeSormo. So, as I say, I was a little bit surprised. A couple of names that were a little bit unfamiliar to me, jockey and trainer leading the pack.
Yeah, Shane Wilson, and that's his go-to rider, Jose Guerrero.
Okay.
All those wins are for, those are all them teaming up for those. And Guerrero is somebody that they've won titles over the summers at Louisiana Downs and won a lot of races over the past couple of years when they started to ride them, and they decided to kind of talk him into it, like, hey, stay here, you can do this, you can ride with these guys, and he's holding his own for sure. They're a barn that they enter a lot. They try to find the right spots. They know the deal with the Kentucky, trainers and barns coming down and when they can kind of take their swings. And they've just been doing great with their horses. And they got the Britland stables. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Britland stables, but Evelyn Benoit, Star Guitar, is the owner.
Okay.
And she's got a fantastic, stable of horses, and she moved him from Jose Camejo to Shane Wilson. And so he's got all of those runners, and they can run. They're great against the lawbred divisions. So that's just kind of missing piece for him to be able to have the success. And if you get a big enough lead and you've got enough horses, which he does, he's got 100 head in between here and Louisiana Downs. He's a serious contender. So I wish we could bet on that, Seth. Can we find a market where we can bet on if he can hold it out? Yeah, somewhere, right?
But yeah, 86 starters so far. And just reading, it sounded like he came into this a couple of months leading into the Fairgrounds meet with a target on the beginning of the meet, and he mission accomplished because he's off to a very hot start. But I wanted to alert people, keep your eyes on Shane Wilson. All right, let's get to the stakes action on Saturday, because again, I say it all the time. Fairgrounds, one of my favorite meets of the year, certainly this time of year. And it's a great stakes calendar with stakes in the various divisions, and it plays into the 3-year-old scene, certainly, but on the grass and older horses as well. And that's demonstrated this Saturday with some 2-year-old races that will play into the Triple Crown next year, obviously, and other stakes on the undercard. But let's kick things off with the 2-year-old boys in the gun runner, because I think a lot of people are looking forward to Nash. I pulled up the maiden special breaker back on November 12th up at Churchill. Nash is going to be the number 4 horse here and wins by over 10 lengths for Brad Cox. So potent connections. Brad Godolphin off of this big win. Nash looks very interesting in here. I thought Track Phantom was a little bit playable for Steve Asmussen. Risk It, also an Asmussen horse. Sneed for Brendan Walsh could be a little bit intriguing. But how did you see the gun runner?
Yeah, it's Nash's races to lose. My knock against him is turns into actually a positive. So that last race, it was a speed favoring track, right? And so the numbers are coming back are higher, or at least that's the way I rate it. You can get down that argument, but I've got it as a speed favoring track, and so the numbers are coming back higher. The margin of victory, it gets extended on those days, and I think that actually makes me like Nash more, because I don't want a horse to fire their best shot before the race. I want to bet them, right? I think if you can bounce off of that, you can come off of that in a negative way, and you might have already sort of hit the ceiling you want to hit as a 2-year-old. So, I think it speaks more to that he took a nice, modest step forward after losing the boost, and was very impressive, and should be able to take maybe another step forward from that one. Not that he necessarily needs to. Talking to Brad, he thinks this horse has got more levels. He's not just a one-dimensional, to the lead horse. So we haven't seen it all by any means, and they love him. So I think he's the one to beat. But I'm with you. Track Phantom is the one in terms of the 2 Asmussen horses that seem like has the most talent. Also, has been a forward horse. Second time going 1 mile and 1/16. Second time going 2 turns. With Churchill having the 1-turn mile. I think he's interesting, and maybe has the better draw. Just being right outside that one and can kind of take it to him. And the track profile is always interesting here. It can be really rail biased, or it can just sort of turn on a dime, and down the middle is where you want to be. And it turned on a dime yesterday. It seemed like the rail was deep, so we'll see if that sort of stays true. If so, having that sort of outside advantage could be big.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Just as I say, to see what Nash can do. But there are 2 or 3 or 4 others in here that could prove to be very interesting. Late season 2-year-olds, and in a few weeks when the calendar changes. Let's go.
Yeah, I think this Ormo's got 2. Next level. He really thinks this is as talented as any Derby contending horse as he's had. So the numbers are a little slow there, but I think he was on a bad rail, and that could kind of affect that. But he's got tons of talent, and he's got Malibu Rain earlier on in the Sugar Bowl, who he thinks is absolutely a Rizasar or Lecomte horse. So with Desormo's got live long shots. You want to pay attention.
And I love the name of this, the Next Level, owned by Don't Tell My Wife Stable. So gotta love that.
Yeah.
The 11th on Saturday afternoon is the Tenacious, $100,000 up for grabs, and 1 mile and a 16th. I put Dash Attack on top, and I'm going to take a look at Brigadier General getting it done in the Keeneland allowance race. And I'm just looking here. Brigadier General is on the outside. I have him right underneath. I put Dash Attack on top, and we're going to talk to Ken McPeek in a while, so I'm going to get filled in on Dash Attack, and that's why I pulled up the replay of Brigadier General. Number 14 horse here, our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds with Dallas Stewart. I think coming off this win at Keeneland, that one's tough. And then Stage Raider's interesting to me, and very interesting to me is Pioneer of Medina, who tossed in kind of the clunker in the first start for Brad Cox, but certainly had plenty of promise early in the career. I'm just intrigued to see what he can do now on this second start in the Cox Barn, Pioneer of Medina. But what did you see in the Tenacious?
Yeah, I mean, everybody in here has a question mark next to them, right? You know, whether they're just kind of coming from different levels, or they, jumped, hopped at the start and almost took their rider's head off, like Stage Raider, or just that clunker from Pioneer Medina. I mean, the excuse there is, he's a true two-turn route horse, and that 1 mile, and kind of got maybe used a little bit early in the way that he didn't want to. So I think you could throw that one out. 5-Star General. I don't think anybody should sleep on the six in here. Brant Forrester is just such a quality horseman, and has had, horses that have often been the bridesmaid and not the bride in these stakes races, and running against some tough older routers. He's doing fantastic. Looking at Thoroughgraph, he's definitely more than fit, and he just raced against Touch Upon a Star, which a lot of your listeners might not be familiar with, but he is a son of Star Guitar, a Louisiana-bred horse that is just maybe the second coming of Star Guitar, and should be facing company outside the state. But, he's owned by Jake Delhomme, Carolina Panthers quarterback, and they love this state program, and they kind of stay true to it. So he went toe-to-toe with that guy, and that's more impressive than it might seem if you're not familiar with him. He's doing fantastic. He might be loose on the lead. He's an all-out send. So 5-Star General is where I'm leaning in there. Confidence game, talking to DeSormo, they're just trying to get him to relax. He's just been too keen and used too much early on. If he can relax, he's got the talent. I'm not sure if this is the one that he's going to be able to get it done, though. We'll see. But I do think Dash Attack is very interesting, and maybe if somebody did sort of cause some trouble for 5-Star General out in front with that rail draw, it could be him. It seems like he did his best running on the lead there, a couple back. So we'll see what David Cohn decides to do. Interesting to see Cohen and Ken McPeek team up. They won the Traverse, I think, like 15 years ago or something like that. So that's cool to see that story's coming together, and it could be ominous for a win.
5-Star General with the frequent flyer miles, though, earlier this year wins the Long Acres Mile up at Emerald Downs and bouncing around since then. So he's interesting. One race earlier, the Diliberto, they're on the grass for this one, $100,000 up for grabs. Rising Empire is interesting to me for Brendan Walsh. So I use that one. Beatbox in my mix as well. I have 2 Emmys and Law Professor, but I will say I'm outside with all of these, and I'm a little bit leery on that. What did you see in the Diliberto?
I'm with you with Rising Empire. I think he's the one in here.
All right, very good.
He loves it. He loves it in New Orleans, and he loves this track, and he showed it. I mean, the way he just bounced across it. He's carrying great weight. He just looks locked in, and talking to Brendan, he thinks that he'll take another step forward off of that last race, and I see it the same way. So I love Rising Empire. I do think Carlin Estate, we might sleep on him, but he's been running huge, even though he hasn't been getting the wins the past 2. And up to the Mark Master to see that's a tough little race there on October 7th, and at a distance I think is shorter than he wants. So I think Carlin Estate is one that you just have to use. 2 Emmys is one I'm gonna give him one. I think he needs one. He's got all good reasons. He hasn't been injured or anything, with this long layoff, but I do think he needs one, especially with this outside draw, and especially with Law Professor drawing right outside of him. I think he seems like an all-out send, and has some varied turf form, but some serious turf form. So he could be a sleeper in there too. And of course, you got the new addition to Maker's Barn, right? If you talk about the number 7 in here, street ready. Older horse, new into Maker's Barn. Get Corey Lannery up, always getting on live horses here at Fairgrounds. So street ready might be one you don't want to throw out too quickly.
Yeah, and Law Professor going out for Rob Atras. We're familiar with him up here, of course, in New York, but has some runners on the card on Saturday. And finally, just quickly, the untappable for the 2-year-old gals going 1 mile and 70. I put Alpine Princess on top, but I think West Omaha is very interesting, and I pulled up the replay of West Omaha breaking the maiden, going to be the number 3 horse here. Legendema for Phil Bauer, or Legendema for Phil Bauer is also interesting. Fibber, Band of Gold. It's a short field, but it's an intriguing field. Your thoughts on the untappable?
Yeah, I think Legendema could be the commanding speed in here, and so I think I want to lean on that one. But really, I can make a case for any of these.
Yeah.
Either Fibber has been losing ground early most every race, just a little bit of gate issues. Christina Chapel has some excuses and ran really game against Alpine Princess. Band of Gold ran down a loose leader for mcPeek, and slow number came back from it, but really impressed me with the try and the heart of Band of Gold. In the mornings, when I see Alpine Princess, I just think she's doing it easy out there. She's doing it easy, which is what I like to see in the workout. So she's, of the 2 cock fillies, that's the one I want. And these big days at Fairgrounds, trying to beat Brad Cox is could be profitable, but it's just a bad track record. So, and I usually try to do it, and I think I've maybe learned my lesson by now. So you do just want to use those and find your value and your equity elsewhere.
Yeah, we've all been in that boat, believe me. Kevin, just before I let you go, I know you got to run, but I did want to let you tout. You mentioned you're an author, and I saw on your Twitter feed that you have a book coming out in 2024. You already have one out. I know the Chicago window, a couple out. But talk a little bit about what you write, fiction or nonfiction, horse racing related or otherwise. Talk a little bit about the books.
Yeah, fiction. I've got poetry out there too, and I've done plays and all that sort of stuff. So kind of literary stuff, but kind of fun, kind of detective-based sort of city fiction. So the one coming out, The Anvil, is about a horse player who is kind of fallen deep for it while he's trying to figure out his life and has kids. And one night in his life where he's got to make a big decision, and he's going around drinking with a lot of people younger than him, riding his bike around and exploring the city and trying to see straight for a good decision for himself and his family. And I think it turned out pretty good. I'm proud of this one. So yeah, it'll be out later on this spring, and you follow me at Trust Your Luck, and I'll let you know for sure when it does.
Looking forward to it. I like that. It sounds intriguing. So certainly we'll have you come on and talk a little bit about that when it comes out. But in the meantime, we'll cycle you and Joe Kay in during the Fairgrounds meet as well, because, again, a lot of great racing still to come. But we appreciate the visit today and wish everybody down there a lot of good luck on Saturday afternoon. And as I say, we'll talk again.
All right, Seth. Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it as well. Kevin Kilroy from Fairgrounds. Big day coming up on Saturday.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Oops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player? To have a better knowledge of the game? To be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes.
In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Falba. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish to the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Happy to be joined now by Ken McPeek. He's got a number of runners on Saturday afternoon, a big stakes day down at the Fairgrounds in New Orleans. Ken, good morning.
Good morning.
Happy to have you on board. And last night I was looking at Equibase and looking at your entries, not just at the Fairgrounds, obviously, but at other tracks. And it seems like lately you've had some runners at Oaklawn, you've had some runners at Turfway, Fairgrounds. Obviously, there was even one up at Aqueduct. Is there some place you consider your wintertime home base?
Well, funny you ask. I spent almost 30 years racing at Gulfstream. But for a list of reasons, we don't race there anymore. And the truth is, logistically, I think it works a little bit better racing at, Fairgrounds and Oaklawn because you can move your horses between the two relatively easily. Certainly missed the warm weather in South Florida, but my horses actually last year did really, really well. Rotating between Fairgrounds and Oaklawn and Turfway a little bit. And, we've added on the little New York division. We only have 7 horses left up there, but the horses have run really well up there. My assistant, Nick Galletti, has knocked it out. I think he's 4 out of 10. We haven't made a lot of runs, but we've made good quality runs. Of course, winning the Tempted and then second in, was it the Mother Goose? I can't remember the name of the race, but the Demoiselle with Shimmering Allure. So, we've got some bases covered. I'm really proud of it. I got a great group of guys and girls that work for me, and we're hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah, you were certainly playing at some of the major wintertime venues. I mean, even without Gulfstream, Oaklawn now is a major venue, and Turfway is really improved their wintertime product over the past couple of years. You mentioned New York. I'm curious, as you were talking, it dawned on me. Since the announcement has come out, I really haven't had a horseman on to ask, but I'm wondering from a horseman's perspective, do you have any thoughts on the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga this year?
Well, being that we had properties up there, I'm thrilled. I've got a house on the lake that I've had for a few years, and then the staff likes going up there, and so we'll probably head up there a little bit earlier this spring. And I think it works for everybody. Obviously they're trying to make some big improvements at Belmont, and I think in the long run it'll be really good for the game for them to do that. But it's exciting, the new venue, and it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds.
Well, I can tell you the excitement is on a scale of 10, it's at an 11 around here. It has been for a couple of months, but when the announcement came out, everybody's ready for it, certainly. But let's get to Saturday afternoon at the Fairgrounds. Again, you have some runners in some of the stakes. Let's start out. It's that time of year, late season 2-year-olds, always a lot of fun. The Gun Runner, you have Footprint going. I pulled up a replay of his last race. The winner will be number 5, Laganos, but Footprint's the number 2, runs second. This was the 3rd career start. Maiden breaker and debut at Keeneland was Footprint. This was an off-the-turf race at 1 1/16, same distance as the Gun Runner Saturday afternoon. So talk a little bit about the second in the allowance event last time at Churchill. How did he come out of that? How's he coming into the Gun Runner on Saturday?
He came out of his last race really well. This is a horse that's kind of developing. I mean, he's got a lot to prove to beat a horse like Nash, but we want to find out how good he is at this stage. And I think the worst case scenario is to get some stakes placing, but he wants to run all day this colt, and he's going to need a bit of a setup, and he's going to need to show, more talent than he's shown up to now. But, look, it's exciting. And Greg McDonald is the primary owner. Him and Ted Mims. I've had horses for Ted Mims since, I'm going to date myself, 1987. And I'm really proud of having a working relationship with a client like him. And it'll be interesting. He's a good colt, but he's got to show a little bit more than he's shown up to now, and he's going to get a chance to do that.
But with 3 starts, that is certainly worth taking the shot with in a spot like this.
Yeah, like it's early on in his career, and we know he wants 2 turns, and he seems to be developing and rounding out the right direction. But he is kind of a galloper type, 1-run type.
The one race before, the Tenacious, for the 3-year-olds and up, going a mile and a 16th, you have Dash Attack. This is a horse I've liked throughout the career, going back to the win in the Smarty Jones, right at the start of his career a couple of years back. Dash Attack, I'm going to take a look at the race 2 back at Churchill. Optional claimer, nice win. Dash Attack's going to be number 5 here. Win it very nicely. Subsequent to that, a little bit disappointing in the Fayette. So talk about this race 2 back, the optional claimer with the nice win that I'm sure gave you confidence going into the Fayette. And what was the takeaway from that race?
Well, he's a really solid horse. He has been. You know, he started off his career with a bit of a bang, and then he leveled out. He had some little ankle issues, which we had to give him over 6 months off to let those settle down, and he came back better than ever. And then since then, he's just a bit of a nice, steady, good, solid colt. And I think a listed stakes race is ideal for him at this stage, and he should fit with that group down there. Julian rode him really well back in the fall, and David Cohen, who's riding him this week, is very, very knowledgeable about the horse, and I think he's going to give a good account of himself.
Yeah, and the race, we're looking at here, the stretch run, a triple-digit buyer, that certainly was a nice little bonus for this stage of the career. And as I say, subsequent to that, the Fayette. But looking back at that triple-digit buyer, Dash Attack to me is very interesting on Saturday afternoon. What are your expectations for Saturday for Dash Attack?
Well, he's going to need to run back to his best race to win, and he can do that. I think he settled in to New Orleans really well down there, and he's, like I said, very workmanlike, easy horse to be around, and loves what he does, and he's as good as he's ever been right now.
I said a triple-digit buyer. I might have asked you this before, because I'll often ask trainers when we get them up at Saratoga, but are you a numbers guy? And if so, as part of your training regimen, and if so, what numbers do you use?
I am not a numbers guy.
Okay.
I work on, taking horses from condition to condition. Like certainly, once they've jumped through whether it's maiden, allowance, 2 other than, 3 other than, or even a young horse can jump from a maiden straight into a stakes race. But, we're developing a lot of young horses, and here's the horse that he's a listed stakes winner, and we're back in a listed stake. And it seems like when we've raised him up into grade 3s and grade 2s, he struggled a little bit. And I really don't spend a lot of time worrying about the numbers. I'm also a bit of what I call a tinkerer, and then I'll try a little of this and a little of that until we come up with the right recipe. And don't put any energy into my win percentage. I think win percentage is a bit of a misnomer. I think you've got to do in some cases, you've got to try spots to see if a horse can raise himself up to the next level, and then you find a level that they settle into, and hopefully they run well in those spots.
Yeah, I like that philosophy, because I think sometimes the numbers can limit people. They won't test their horse and try some more ambitious spots potentially. And speaking of moving from maiden specials into stakes races, let's go back to the 9th on Saturday afternoon, the Untappable for the 2-year-old fillies. You've got a couple in here. We'll take them one by one. But Band of Gold, we're going to take a look at the maiden breaker in a debut effort at Churchill. Band of Gold's going to be the number 12 here. Gets it done. Gutsy performance. I always love when they get there and win by that nose. Just shows to me a lot of tenacity. So Band of Gold comes out of that. It was the 1-turn mile, but it was a debut maiden breaker. Stretches to the 1.70 on Saturday. Talk a little bit about Band of Gold.
Well, this is a big, beautiful filly. I think she was she did really well to break her maiden first time out there. Churchill, especially a tricky distance at a 1-turn mile. I think she's a 2-turn filly. She's got the never won 2 allowance condition, but at this stage we want to chase a little black type with her, and the same with her entry mate there, Sistina Chapel. We want to chase some black type. This is an opportunity to get some page to the female family. Dixie Anna Farm is the breeder of Band of Gold, and then Brownwood Farm is the breeder of Sistina Chapel, and so they own the mares. And so this is another reason why you take a shot to try to figure out how good they can be in stakes company. The Steinbrook family, Brownwood Farm, they're kind of new to Kentucky and even American racing. Very formidable client, Brazilian gentleman, and got Brownwood Farm in Lexington. So they're trying to make their path. And Dixiana, rock solid Bill Shavely. I mean, once again, we're trying to get black type on some young fillies.
Very good. And speaking of Sistina Chapel, talk a little bit about her career, because as you said, you like to tinker a little bit, and it looks like some tinkering went on here. Started the career with a couple of turf races, Ellis Park and Kentucky Downs, a couple of nice seconds. Then you moved her to the dirt, won there at Churchill, followed up in an off the turfer. And we're going to take a look at that last race on November 26th. Alpine Princess, who's in on Saturday as well, is the winner, but Sistina Chapel, the number 2, runs second. So again, talk a little bit about the career so far, going back and forth, turf and dirt.
Well, we wanted distance for her, and in the beginning, I really think that the old saying, the longer they run, the longer they run. I like to run horses a mile first time out. I think that it's a really kind distance. You don't have to force the pace, and they can get into a nice rhythm and learn to make a finish. And she's learned her lessons well. I can remember a year ago, I looked at her in here in Lexington. I'm actually going to look at her sister this afternoon. Yearling turning 2 next week. And she's a gorgeous filly, beautiful hip on her. Of course, Liam's Map I'm fond of. I had Crazy Beautiful, who was by Liam's Map also. But, this is a very attractive filly, and she's training really well. She gives the Band of Gold everything she can handle in the workouts. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you at this stage, she's probably a little better of the two. But, they both got an opportunity to prove themselves.
And it's a short field, but I think a fun, competitive field. And finally, on the stakes action on Saturday in the Blushing KD, you have Lovely Princess. Going to take a look at her. Actually running third in the Cardinal. The winner, Star Fortress, kind of runs away with it. Lovely Princess is right there under the wire with Saffron Moon. Lovely Princess is going to be the number 3 horse here. So again, the winner kind of was well ahead, but it was a ding-dong battle for second. But this looks like a clever spot for Lovely Princess. 8-5, the favorite on the morning line. Talk about expectations for her in the Blushing KD.
She's been kind of unlucky. She's been second in stakes and even graded stakes. And we really want to check the box on a stakes win for her. Obviously, help once again, helping the page. Kirk Gentry bred her locally there in Lexington, and she's come into our barn and just been a consummate professional. It's a really lovely filly to be around. And there's a series of stakes races there at Fairgrounds that I think suit her for the winter. I was contemplating giving her the winter off and then waiting until spring, but she's like right on the cusp of winning a stake. And I thought that this listed stake would be a good next spot. And there might be a graded stakes race in her future.
And talk a little bit about that from a trainer's perspective. You mentioned the kind of the series, and is that one of the nice things about being at Fairgrounds? And as you say, being able to kind of bounce back and forth to Oaklawn as well. Both tracks have a very nice series for a number of the divisions that can play out through the winter.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. There's a lot of choices. Dirt at Oaklawn, but grass at the Fairgrounds. Like Lovely Princess, you won't see her going to Oaklawn at all. And we'll let Sistina and Band of Gold sort themselves out between, where at some point we'll probably separate them. But I've got some really good 3-year-old fillies or 2 turning 3 fillies on the shelf right now. Vivi's Dreams getting ready to come back. Top filly, Second Mouse of Bodies. We've got Torpedo Anna, who's a filly that has freaky talent. She's getting a little bit of a break, but she'll be back later in the season. And then we've also got Wonder Ride, who was third in the Spinaway this past summer. And that doesn't include Shimming Allure, who's still in New York. She's going to point to the Busanda up there. But we've got some depth in fillies. Real exciting.
Well, speaking of 2-year-olds and exciting 2-year-olds, whenever there's a firster, got to get some thoughts. And the undercard at Fairgrounds on Saturday offers some interesting opportunities for those types. The 6th race, maiden specials, going a mile and an eighth on the turf, and you're going to debut Count Dracula, the intriguingly named Count Dracula. What are your expectations for him on Saturday?
They're modest. You know, he's an auction maiden horse. I didn't give anything for this colt. I mean, I want to say, can you look it up? How much did I pay? 17 grand or 20?
Yeah.
20. Yeah, you know, but he trains really well, and he's a typical Temple City. I think he's a grass horse. I don't like the 1 1/8, to be honest. I wished it was a flat mile, but I want to get him in the game, and he'll be a horse that's going to probably just dawdle around the first half mile and then let him run the last 5/8. You know, I don't think you can send one away from there. And as far as we didn't really hammer on him to run him 1 1/8 first time, but he's going to gallop along, settle, make one run, hopefully get some experience, but modest expectations. And he's going to be really tough in the auction, those auction maiden races. And they wrote those in the next book at the Fairgrounds.
Ah, nice.
So likely this will be a bit of a test drive that sets him up for a race in the next book in January.
20 at the 20 price, he fits squarely into the, those were a great addition, particularly up here at Saratoga, where you can hit some of the big hitters, and it added a nice from betting perspective as well. Wanted to touch on one more horse, and this is going back a couple of weeks. The Mistletoe at Oaklawn. Butterbean, 20-1 on the morning line, eventually went off at 11-1, but looked pretty good winning the Mistletoe, as I say, a couple of weeks ago at Oaklawn. What were your expectations? What were your thoughts after the race, and what might we see next for Butterbean?
Well, Butterbean's a really cool horse. Butterbean was named by my youngest daughter. She thinks she owns her too, by the way. And it's a bit of a family affair, and there's a fantastic group of people that are partnered in on Butterbean. And she literally has a cult following. Everybody thinks the horse is named after the boxer. She's actually named after Butterbean Cafe, which is the Nickelodeon children's cartoon. And she's rock solid, this filly. She had a little bit of an episode of bleeding in the summer, which kind of was a head scratcher, but she hasn't done it since. And then she's really on form right now. We have a booking to Good Magic for her to be bred this spring.
Oh.
But we're going to put that on hold for a couple of races, and she's going to run in the Pippin on the 6th of January, and then possibly the Bayakoa in early February. So that's kind of her setup. And yeah, she's been a lot of fun. I mean, another one, I only gave 22 grand for her. And I get a kick out of those kind, you know.
I don't blame you.
You know, it's not what you spend, it's how you spend it. For Swiss Skydiver set the bar for my career in curling pretty high already. But anyway, those are fun horses, and it gives people, you know, it really isn't. You don't have to throw money at the game. You just have to spend it smart.
Yeah, Keeneland, September 2020, you paid $22,000. That win the other day put her over $400,000. Nice job there. And it looked great. We just watched the stretch run and nice closing kick. So looking forward to her coming up in the Pippin perhaps next. And before I let you go, you know, you've mentioned auctions a few times. As an auction player, clearly you had the sales this fall, which I think I would imagine for folks who go to the auctions and play in the auctions, that is a tiresome couple of months playing in these fall auctions. But now do you get a little time off, and now do you gear up for the 2-year-old sales, and how does that work?
The auctions are exhausting in the summer and the fall, but that's the core of our recruiting process. And I love doing it, but yeah, I'm a little numb when it's over. Especially Keeneland September, because it's 16 days of walking, looking. It's a real test on your stamina. And then the 2-year-old sales, I don't work the 2-year-old sales at this stage in my career. I don't like them. I don't believe in them. I believe that the horses that I bought in September, or the horses I turned down or didn't buy in September or October or even July and August, are the same horses that go through the 2-year-old sale. And there's probably going to be some pinhookers out there who are going to go, no, Kenny, don't say that. But I've really, really turned my back on the 2-year-old sales for probably the last 5 to 10 years. And I did buy Golden Ticket in a 2-year-old sale, but he was an aberration, and I'd really stick to the yearlings, and it's my best area, I think.
So you get time off now until what, July, right? That'll be the first yearling sale.
So I've been traveling. I left 2 days after the Churchill meet. I went down and checked the young horses in Ocala. I was there about a week. I went from Ocala, checked on my home at Hollywood. I still have a home next to Gulfstream, which is unfortunately not utilized nearly as enough right now. And then went to New Orleans and checked on the stock there and spent some time with Greg Geyer, who's a really key player in my barn. And then I went to Oaklawn and spent some time at Oaklawn, checked on the division there and got all our ducks in a row for, the winter and into December into January. And then right now I'm back in Louisville. And I spent some time with my wife and daughter, who I'd been away from for 3+ weeks. And then to this afternoon, I've got to go to Lexington and look at a group of young horses for the Brownwood family. The Steinbrook family. And then probably stop by my farm and check on things. So, yeah, I'm like a bit of a ping pong ball. And to catch me, it's a bit of like whack-a-mole. Where's Kenny now? Okay. Guess.
Well,
so all good.
As I said at the top, when I looked at Equibase, Turfway, Fairgrounds, Oaklawn, there was one at Aqueduct. So plenty of action for the mcPeek barn and plenty of success as well with horses like Butterbean. So we'll wish you a lot of success on Saturday afternoon down at the Fairgrounds with some nice stakes runners on that big stakes card. And Ken, we appreciate the time. As always, we'll talk again in the future.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Ken McPeek again. Nice list of stakes runners coming up Saturday afternoon at the Fairgrounds. Hey, Ken, thanks. That was great.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Gulfstream Park's championship meet brings world-class thoroughbred racing to South Florida each winter, and it's a prime reason to offer the best turf racing possible. Having the best surfaces is the key to offering a superior racing product. We are committed to attracting the world's best horses, trainers, and jockeys to run over our exceptional course. Gulfstream Park's new turf course will be unveiled this December.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
The holiday weekend, and it is a big day at the Fairgrounds, as we've already talked with Kevin Kilroy and Kenny McPeek. Really nice stakes day down in New Orleans, but it's also a very nice stakes day over at Gulfstream as well. So I thought we'd spend a few minutes with our friend Brian Nadeau, just taking a look at some of the stakes action down in Florida as well. Brian, good morning.
Hey, Seth, good to hear from you. Good morning to you as well. Yeah, big weekend here at Gulfstream Park Saturday. We've got the Rainbow Six mandatory day, and then 4 stakes, a couple of them graded. And I'll tell you what, the Tropical Park Oaks and Derby, the non-graded stakes races for the 3-year-olds on turf, came up tremendously tough. So, yeah, a lot of fun and look forward to it.
Yeah, I think it's a fun stakes day. And we should note, back on the turf this week after, man, it was a rough week last week. That Saturday where you guys got inundated, but that was kind of the exclamation point on an already wet couple of days. And then the cancellation, though, of the Allen Jerkins, I would imagine is going to play out nicely for that race as it turns out on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, we're glad we brought it back. It came together, and, we ran it last year on the Tapeta when it was washed off, but the fact we get to run it back now, it's pretty cool. The weather looks good this weekend. You said it. My goodness, it was brutal to say the least last weekend. But everything, knock on wood, should be all systems go here this weekend.
And we're taping on Friday, so we're still in the middle of the card, and we don't know how it's going to play out. But the game plan is on Saturday, mandatory pay in the Rainbow Six. And the potential, if it doesn't get hit on Friday, potential is for it to balloon up nicely.
Yeah, I have $3 million in my head, Seth, if we can get there to Saturday, because there's not really a lot going on. Fairgrounds has a good card, obviously, but it's all eyes on Gulfstream Park with New York and the turf racing here. The world-class connection. So we expect a huge, huge day on an awesome card of racing.
That's a great point with the holiday weekend and some of the major venues not going. You will have a lot of interest down there with the mandatory. Let's go through part of that mandatory, the late pick 4, lots of stakes action as we alluded to, and let's kick it off with the Tropical Park Oaks, Saturday's 8th race, $125,000 for the 3-year-old fillies on the turf. I thought Breath Away was a little bit interesting for Christophe Clement. Startup mentality, of course, it's Chad and Klarovich implicated is in my mix as well. They're all towards the outside, though. I had to throw one in on the inside, and I think Cairo Consort for Todd Pletcher, intriguing as well. How did you see the Oaks?
Yeah, if you were watching on the feedback at OTB or, certainly simulcast feed, Cairo Consort's been schooling the last couple of days in the paddock. She looks good. Hasn't been out since May, but she loves this turf course, and Todd is IRAD. So that makes sense. It's my long shot in here, though, Seth. Dolce Sapressa, Paco Lopez, my goodness, if he rides lights out here at the championship meet. She's going to have to stretch out. She's been 6 furlongs on the turf, twice at Woodbine. But I think, there's not a lot of speed in this race. We know how aggressive Paco can be. And I think, Seth, if he can break running, he might be able to set the pace in here. This is a solid group, but there's no world beaters. And she's going to be a square price. So I'm going to try to get her home at a big number, the 7, Dolce Sapressa for Paco.
As you're talking, I'm kind of liking it because it's a Josie Carroll runner coming down from some sprints up at Woodbine, and the stretch out, that'll be a little bit interesting, certainly. The Sugar Squirrel Grade 3 event, $125,000. Fillies and Mares sprinting. I like Napa Candy in here. John Velasquez on board for Vicky Oliver coming off a win up at Churchill. A little bit of a price, perhaps. Intrepid Daydream for Safi Joseph. Spirit Wind. The layoff concerns me, but has a good record at Gulfstream. What did you see in the Sugar Swirl?
Seth, we're going to show that replay of Napa Candy on Napa. She was impressive at Churchill. And, this is a solid group. Don't get me wrong. But, again, another race where you are allowed to be creative with Napa Candy, a newcomer who ran so well. I'm going to go. It's actually my best bet of the day. It's an aggressive one. But Herm Walensky's done a phenomenal job here all year long. My Destiny is 4 for 10 over the main track here. She got caught up in a speed duel at Mahoning Valley. She doesn't want to be on the lead. She won't be on the lead in here. We can get her to settle a little bit under Edwin Gonzalez, and I think she can fire on late. It's a wide open field. You literally could come up with a case for every single horse entered. And my Destiny should be a square price in here, and I'm going to lean on her heavily on the Saturday card.
I like that. In the 10th race, the Mr. Prospector, I'm intrigued to see where you landed here because this, to me, was the puzzle. I went with Win From Within, 10-1 on the morning line for Bill Morey, Luis Saez on board. But I do it with a lack of confidence. Great Navigator is interesting. Sibelius, the winner of this race last year, Long Range Toddy. Again, this to me is a real puzzle. What did you see in the Mr. Prospector?
Yeah, both their races are very, very problematic. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I took a shot. I don't know if it's a shot, but Great Navigator. I thought he ran huge in the Vosburg. He had literally no chance in that race. But for him to be third behind Cody's Wish and Akrishiev is a good effort. He's got a world of upside for Eddie Owens Jr. And, another race, just like the Sugar Swirl, that seems to me wide open. If you can get the right now horse and they run a big race, they're going to be throwing down a race a lot of these horses can't handle. I respect Sibelius. I'm not sure if he was the horse he was last year. Hurricane J is going to have to prove it to me. Gilmore, I don't know on the cutback. I know Great Navigator is in good form. I have to work out a trip from the rail, but I do like him in this spot.
Very good. And finally, the Tropical Park Derby. Folks who watch the show enough No, this is the subdivision I like, and this is pretty much the exclamation point on the year for 3-year-olds on the turf. $125,000 up for grabs. I went with Ohana Honor for our friends at West Point and Shug. I thought has put together kind of a nice and intriguing season to maybe move this one into the older division next year on the turf. Armstrong at a price is intriguing. Anglophile getting back to the turf. What did you see in the Derby?
Yeah, I mean, Ohana Honor is a horse to beat. But, what I see in the Derby is a group of horses that are probably within 2 to 3 lengths of each other, depending on the trip, depending on the post. I'm stubborn as all heck, Seth. I tried Suzak last time for Grand Motion, but I'm going to come back with him. I think 2 turns is his game. He's going to be a big price. He's got 2 sprints into this now. If we get maturation off the February race, theoretically puts him in the mix with this kind of group. I don't care who you tell me, and you said Ohana Honor, I agree, I have him in second. You want to tell me Anglophile for sure. Some of these other horses, Bapio is another one, Smoky Mandate, they're all fine. None of them have to win, and none of them have any kind of margin for error. And I just feel very strongly that it's a race to look for value, and I'm going to take a shot with Suzak. It's, to me, a huge spread race in the sequence. And I want to make sure if I'm alive, I've got all my bases covered, because this could blow it up, and Suzak would be definitely one to do so.
And I love the angle I have for years now. Come back from a layoff, a couple of sprints, and stretching out in the third start back has been productive for me over the years, so I'm not going to argue there. Brian, appreciate the visit and the thoughts. Again, wanted to toss in at least a little bit of conversation about the big day coming up on Saturday at Gulfstream as well, and the mandatory in the Rainbow Six. So, hey, happy holidays to you. Wish happy holidays to everybody down there in the press office and the racing office as well, and we'll talk again.
Yeah, sounds good, Seth. Same to you and everybody back home, and looking forward to seeing you down here sooner rather than later. Thanks again.
That's the game plan. Again, big day down at Gulfstream, and put that on the agenda for today as well. Discussion with Brian about the mandatory, and we taped that yesterday, and we were halfway through the Rainbow yesterday, and there was the potential. There was a big upset in the first leg, so there was an upset in the first leg. Let me put it that way. So there was the potential that somebody could scoop it, and they did. So there's still a mandatory today. They're guaranteeing $100,000 in the pool. And typically on these days at Gulfstream, that bet always attracts attention. And as Brian said, with New York on the sidelines, Oakland on the sideline, I think they will. And I think it's going to be a nice pool. If you looked at it, or if you're considering it with the mandatory pay, I think that'll balloon up nicely today, regardless. It won't be what it was potentially. Brian was anticipating $3 million. I'm not seeing that, obviously, with it getting scooped yesterday. And I pulled up, it wasn't crazy, but it's hard to put these all together on a ticket. But looking yesterday, there was a favorite in the mix. As I say, that first race, there was an upset. It wasn't a huge upset, but there was a 30 cent to $1 favorite that was beaten in the first leg. But it was the second choice at $11. Then the favorite, best of 9, shortest price of 9 horses at $6.80 won the second leg. Fourth choice in a field of 6 at $14 won the third leg. The third choice in a field of 7 at $8.80 won the fourth leg. And then there was a couple of horses that were either the 6th or the second choice. On the chart, they're both the same number, and I don't have the handle numbers to define which was which, but it was either the 6th or the seventh choice in a field of 10 at $24 won the fifth leg, and the fifth choice in a field of 10 at $14 won the last leg. So $11, $6, $14, $8, $24, $14. It wasn't anything super crazy, but again, to put those all together on a ticket is tough, and you have to have a pretty good sized ticket, I would imagine. But somebody did it. $324,000 yesterday, putting a crimp in the plans for the mandatory today. But as I say, still a mandatory, and I would expect they'll get a pretty good pool this afternoon down at Gulfstream. And we'll be looking at it on OTB Live a little bit later on. We'll have some Gulfstream and some Fairgrounds, the two really nice stakes cards today. We'll also have some Tampa in the mix and some Laurel as well. All of that coming up I think we kick things off at Gulfstream at 12:10. So that's coming up sooner rather than later. And I would think, I'm looking up at my monitor up here, think they will be heading to their pregame show shortly. So we'll get into that also. All right. So thanks to Brian for joining us. Thanks to Kevin Kilroy, track handicapper and more down at the Fairgrounds for joining us. And of course, trainer Ken McPeek, who has some runners today at the Fairgrounds as well in stakes action. Hopefully you got some ideas for this afternoon on a nice holiday Saturday with some really nice stakes action and 2-year-old action, late season 2-year-old action that will play into the 3-year-old scene as the calendar turns in a couple of weeks. The 3-year-olds on the turf down at Gulfstream, the subdivision I like quite a bit. So it should be a fun afternoon. Again, I'll be back in about an hour, so a little less than an hour maybe, with OTB Live for a Saturday afternoon. Also, we'll be in tomorrow, kind of an abbreviated day, but we'll do a Racing Across America, recap some of the stakes action and whatnot. And then Tampa and Gulfstream are both running tomorrow, so we'll look at least the early portion of those before we wrap things up. And then a little bit by the end of the day, we will have kicked off our rotation of the annual holiday best of, as we do every Christmas Day with no racing in the country. We on a loop put some of our favorite interviews from the past Saratoga season. That'll be the case again. And as I say, it'll start at the end of the day tomorrow and run all day on Christmas Day. You can tune in, take a break from the turkey, the dressing, the presents, the family, and whatnot, and enjoy some of the, live vicariously, looking at some summertime up at Saratoga on Christmas Day with our best of programming. So hopefully you enjoy that as well. But I'm going to wrap it up for this edition of Racing Across America. Seth Merrow in the studio. Thanks for joining us as always. And again, be back in about an hour or so with OTB Live for a Saturday afternoon on kind of a fun holiday Saturday. We'll see you then. We'd like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park, the championship meet, running now through Florida Derby weekend, March 31st.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.